Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Nice to be chatting with you again.
Yeah, you too. Loving your
I'm
background again. That is fantastic.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I thought I'd come out by the pool outdoors. It's usually really quiet, so hoping
Yeah.
that stays for this morning.
Oh,
Um,
lovely.
and you are a dating relationship coach,
I am.
and you can be found at what's your website? Remind us.
The website is jenrichardson.co.uk.
Perfect. And I went to your website to check you out weeks and weeks and weeks ago, and you also have a quiz there, Up Level Your Dating Life.
Yes. Yeah. So the quiz was something that I designed because when a lot of people either start dating or they've been doing it for a while and they come across some things that aren't quite working, so they're not meeting people that they'd like, they tend to fall into a few simple categories. And so I did the dating quiz. It's like an old style Cosmo dating quiz back in the day. And then at the back of that, after they've done that, they get 3 videos. So no matter which stage they come out at currently, they get sent all 3 videos because they've all got pieces in them that people can find really helpful. And it just gets people either changing their mindset or some different actions. There's a combination of both. That they can address, and it usually gets people moving again and gets them better results straight away.
Yeah, beautiful. And you mentioned mindset. Now I know you do conscious dating, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, for me, and I think for a lot of people, that first term, that conscious in the dating world, came about from the whole conscious uncoupling.
Yes.
Gwyneth,
Yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow, Chris Martin.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the first time I had heard of it. So I imagine a lot of people don't really know what conscious dating is. So can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like
Yeah.
and what
Well, I
that
mean,
works?
it's conscious anything sounds wonderful, doesn't it? It's like
Right. Yeah.
it's better than doing it unconsciously. But for me, the main part of it is self-awareness. So doing something with awareness of what you're looking for and also awareness of what your patterns are. But also the other part of it is doing it with intention. So whatever you're intending to do, and the people I tend to attract are obviously, they're probably looking for a long-term relationship. People who are looking for more of a casual structure don't tend to come across the same blocks as others that are looking for a long-term relationship. So I tend to attract the ones that are looking to settle down and find somebody to spend the rest of their life with, and they're somehow that isn't working. And so awareness and intentionality are what makes the two components of conscious dating. And I sort of help across both of those areas because, particularly with the awareness part, we all think that we're more aware than we are. That applies across the board. And it's always really cool when you can uncover something that you didn't realize you were doing. And I've got multiple examples of that for myself, as well as clients, when a little light bulb goes off and it goes, of course. So
I remember
it's,
I had a light bulb moment years and years and years ago where I was like, I keep seeming to want to go after unavailable men. What is that about? So
yeah. And it's
yeah,
quite interesting, but also it can be a little, what would you call it? Like a little bit of a harsh reality to come to, that sometimes we attract what we are. So there's an
yeah,
element of us that is unavailable.
yeah.
And
I was just,
and we
I was
think
gonna say,
we
oh,
think we're available
that
and
was
we're
true.
ready. Yeah, and we're ready for all of the stuff. And there's no judgment here because we all do some version of this. Um, so if you find yourself complaining about something, and talking to your friends about it and googling it, it's like sometimes the first step to that awareness can be like, how am I part of this equation? Because whatever relationships we've had in the past and whatever complaints or praises that we've got for those relationships, the common denominator is us. So I think it's that another, I guess another part of conscious dating is that taking responsibility for your part in what you're creating. And I
Right.
think that can be a really empowering piece, because sometimes when we're dating, if we're doing it a little bit unconsciously, it can feel like a lot of it is out of our power. A lot of it is out of our control. And of course, that doesn't feel good. So
Yeah.
I think realizing that we have the power over ourselves and how we show up, and that as a consequence that massively impacts what we attract to us as well.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen my own life and girlfriends, it's easy to get out of that empowered piece and to like sort of launch into, you know, I only attract losers or I only attract,
Oh yeah.
and then it becomes this like cycle of you have no way to make changes because you're like so in this like story that you have about yourself and what's out there in the dating world.
Yeah, yeah. And that's like, that can be a significant part of it, is learning how to look after yourself emotionally. Obviously, physically, we want everybody to be safe, but looking after ourselves emotionally and our self-worth and confidence while we're dating. Because if you don't do that, it can be like a massive roller coaster of emotions. And I think when you look after yourself and you've got some tools to help you with that, it it can make those peaks and troughs, and you're not going to get rid of those completely. This is life, and you probably wouldn't want to. It makes life a bit interesting, but you don't want the
Yes.
massive peaks and troughs, because that feels very uncomfortable for your nervous system. So it's managing that is a really big piece of dating.
So I'm curious, what's your dating story?
Yeah, well, I don't know whether it's not perhaps the traditional route. I met my husband when I was 20. I was very young. We were at university, played volleyball together. I say played volleyball. He was very good. I was atrocious, and I just went for the social life. But that's how we met, and we fell in love, and we went down the marriage and the kids route, and it all followed the path that it's kind of meant to. And then he was, it was just after my 40th birthday, he passed away. And we had two kids that were 9 and 10 at the time, two girls. And it was like the rug had just been pulled out from under me. And I
I'm sure.
know there's a lot of people that have maybe been through divorces and things like that. They can probably sort of see their story in that, in the sense that the rug is pulled out from under you. You had an idea that there was going to be a future with this person, and suddenly everything changes. So that's how I ended up back in the dating pool. And a couple of years after my husband died, I wanted, I guess, as a way of finding meaning in life and coming to terms with it, I retrained to help kids with handle their emotions. And it helped me, I think, to feel like I was contributing to something to help other people. That's a massive thing for me. And and then a couple of years later, when I started dating, I realized that those skills that I taught kids to help them handle their emotions and deal with, yeah, ups and downs of life and resilience, they were really helpful when I was dating. And I noticed there was a lot of people that I was meeting that didn't have those skills. So that was the first inkling that actually maybe I can help here. Because from a very naive point of view, I just wanted people to enjoy dating. That you're going out, and most people are looking for somebody to settle down with and build a life with and a partnership with. And that shouldn't feel shitty. So
Yeah, it should be. I mean, I realize there's challenges in dating, but exactly that. Like, it shouldn't feel so hard. It should be enjoyable, shouldn't it?
yeah, yeah. Well, and that's my vision, I guess, for it, is that when you give people certain tools, and that includes strategy and work, because I don't give people a prescription and say you need to do X, Y, and Z, and never text first and only sleep with them after the sixth date and things like that. I don't give a prescription like that, because I don't think those rules work for everyone. I like to work with people and give them like their own rules. I help them craft those as to what feels good for them. And so I think there is an element of structure with that strategy, but there's also a big piece about healing, because when anybody's coming to dating again, second or third time round, we've all got some baggage to work through. You know, none of us have gone through a divorce or a bereavement or a separation and not internalized some strong stories about what it means about us. And so unpicking those parts is the other part of it. It's the conscious part, but it's also the healing that then comes afterwards. And being able to do that, you can do it through talking therapy, but doing it somatically, which is the way I work. Talking about it helps to a point, but I think also these experiences, we feel them in our body. And as an example, I had like not debilitating, but quite bad back pain across the top half of my back, which is a weird place to feel it. It tends to be like tension, that area. And when I did this work, and I did it quite intensively for a couple of weeks, that back pain went. And I'd had it since my husband died. So I'd had it for 5 or 6 years. And I did this somatic healing work and it went, and I've not had it back since. So
Wow.
When I say we store these things in our body, that's an example of it. And quite often it can be, you know, in that heart area, so the back or the front, and in the throat, because that's to do with speaking up and verbalizing things for ourselves. We can clamp down in that area too. So yeah, I found it massively helpful for me. I've seen it work on me, and now I see it work with clients too.
So I think a lot of people, and myself included, have done, like, if you're getting back into the dating world, or if you're a little bit younger, most people first go to dating apps like Tinder, Bumble, I'm not sure what else is out there. This seems like a massive shift in how you're going at dating, to go from apps to sort of like conscious dating or seeing a dating coach. And so for people who don't really know what that's going to look like, what's going to happen when they come to you, and what is that somatic? Because I think a lot of people who are new to this don't really know what that somatic piece looks like. So what would they expect?
Yeah, well, I think conscious dating, it can seem like quite ethereal. You know, it's not something that involves dating apps. But I did massively rely on the dating apps when I went out dating. I'm quite a home bird. I'm not that sociable, I have to say. And I like one-to-one connections, but I don't particularly like going out and, you know, meeting people in bars, and I don't work in a place where there's lots of men around, which is who I'm interested in. So I relied massively on the dating apps, and you can totally use them consciously. I think some people don't, okay. But also they are a very good mechanism for introducing you to a lot of people that you wouldn't normally meet. So I think those are not mutually exclusive. And to address the part about the somatic work, what that looks like, it's, in the first instance, it's noticing how your body feels. So when we say a particular sentence, like, imagine meeting the love of your life and throwing your arms around them, giving them a hug and a kiss, and feeling so safe with them, and noticing what you feel in your body. And there is usually some form, with the people I work with, there's usually some form of like a contraction that they feel.
Okay.
And learning in the first instance to notice that feeling, because quite often we're so busy talking, we're not paying any attention to what's happening in our bodies. And that's what somatic work is. It's working with the body. So bridging the gap between the mind, what we're thinking, what we're saying, what we're doing, and also what's happening in our bodies. So when you, because like, one thing I don't particularly like about some types of dating coaches is that they give you lots of actions to do. So, you know, don't text them first.
Right.
Like, don't reply. Yeah. And I don't like that, because I've worked with people who are quite anxiously attached. So when they're dating, it can be quite an anxiety producing experience, because they would describe it as feeling quite clingy and on edge. And so if somebody doesn't text back, their instinct is to text back and to try and connect more. And you can definitely tell them to not text. And they could sit on their hands, they could confiscate their phone, they could do whatever, they could definitely not text back. But the experience they're having in their body is still going to feel awful.
Right.
And
Okay.
and it's a bit like telling somebody who wants to lose weight, just stop eating. It's not fucking helpful, is it? So, because there's reasons why we're eating, and that's why, and there's reasons why you're having this urge to text when the other person isn't. So it's the reasons behind it that you've got to address, and that's where the somatic work comes in, because you don't need to know where that came from necessarily or what it means, but you can still work with it and heal it. And we do that by doing breath work practices, which is sort of very like connected, intentional breath, sometimes with meditation, with movement. Movement was a big part for me, that you could tap into that feeling, that clenching in my back or in my chest, and breathe into that area and use certain movements to help release it. And that very simply is the somatic work that we do with this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like sticking with the example of the anxious dater. So if they were in a scenario where they were like normally would just like text immediately and like have those feelings in their body, as a result of doing some of that work and doing the unwinding, they would be able to know, okay, I'm feeling really tense because I'm worried that this person is not going to text back or they're going to have a bad reaction. So then they can make almost, what's coming into my mind is almost like a more informed decision, because it's coming from the body, their experience, and they're not just like reacting almost.
Yeah. Because I think that I've just recorded a video actually for Instagram, like the power of that pause. So when you notice when somebody's annoyed you, it works with my kids, it works with, people at work, or when you're stuck in a traffic jam or something like that. It's like the power of the pause. So recognizing the first step, recognizing how you're feeling, and that sensation, notice what it's bringing up in your body and also what you're thinking. And then if you can create a pause between that and the reaction, there is a huge power in that, because there's choice and a bit of compassion for yourself. It can make a massive difference, just learning the power of creating a gap between feeling something and having to react. And you can imagine how that helps on the dating apps. If somebody's not behaving well or responding well, you have the power to not respond at all. Not everybody deserves a response, but also sometimes you might want to, just to get some more information and to practice communicating, which is what I found, especially in the texting stage, that it was really helpful when people had those responses sometimes, that I could ignore it, or I could go, there seems to have been a miscommunication here, or I'm confused. Are you open to talking about it? And some people are and some people aren't. But there's that practice element that you get when you're dating, practicing being a great communicator, because we're all human and we all could improve in that area. So that's one of the things that I love about dating.
Yeah, and it seems that some of the skills that you're talking about and what people would learn, that would spill over into other areas of their life as well, not even dating, because they're, that pause is, it's almost a self-regulatory piece, it seems to me as well. And that's, if you're self-regulating, we're usually not just self-regulating in one area, like we're doing it in our lives in general. So it seems like this would like sort of be support.
I've noticed an impact in every area, the relationships with my kids, at work, with family members, friends. It's like there is Yeah, there's a huge capacity for misunderstanding, particularly during text conversations, which obviously we all do a lot these days. Um, you know, when somebody reads a text but doesn't respond straight away, we make that mean something when actually we could just be missing some information. And
Yeah.
one thing I love to say to people is like, when we don't have all of the information, which is most of the time, let's accept that.
Yeah.
Let's assume the thing that makes us feel the least shitty, rather than immediately going towards the thing that makes us feel the worst. That it's all about us, that we've done
Love that.
something wrong, that we've upset somebody. No, it's, you know, that's how, that in that pause, you can ask a question and find out.
Yeah, I love that. Assume the one that makes us feel the least shitty. I'm gonna start using that
I
later
should have
today,
that on my
probably.
wall behind here.
You know, and it's funny. You said something that you said earlier. You were talking about how we, you know, just tuning into our body and how we react. I got a message from someone out of the blue that I dated years ago that I thought I was over. And when I saw his name come up in this email, like my whole body just like, and I was like, oh my God. So it's like, my thought was, oh, maybe I have a little bit more of letting go to do here.
Yeah, maybe.
Like,
Yeah,
it was like, but I think, I mean, I've done some of the work adjacent to what you do, in my own coaching. And so that is something that I felt, like I said, that spills into the rest of your life. Like I'm much more aware to these physical reactions, and it really helps to inform kind of decisions I make in my life across the board. So
yeah. And I think as well, it's important to say that just because we're coaches and we do this work, that doesn't make us perfect. That doesn't mean that every relationship in the past is perfectly healed and wrapped up in a box with a bow, and we have no response to it. It means that we have awareness around what is there. And relationships are a huge, not just romantic ones, but relationships in general are a massive area for kind of reflecting to us where our work is. Because when we're on our own, we can do all the work in the world, the healing and the self-care, and feel great. But it's only when somebody else reflects something to us that we're, like you've just described, that you realize, wow, there's something else there that needs looking at. And that can be an adventure too. You know, it doesn't have to all be, you know, crying and grief. It can be really quite liberating as well.
yeah, totally agree. So I'm just curious, as a dating coach, and you're obviously somebody who's done a lot of dating on your own, do you have any horror stories that you can share with us?
Yeah, well, I think sometimes we can, because I get that question a lot, and it is a fun one to answer because it's quite dramatic, isn't it? But I also think it kind of feeds into that narrative that there's going to be. And I did have some experiences of, usually in the texting stage, not usually face to face, because I think, again, this conscious dating work, I think it speeds everything up. So I didn't have a horrible date with the ones that misbehaved. They misbehaved on text, and it was very easy to block them. So yeah,
Okay.
so I did have a couple of experiences in my last round of dating where people, and I think they were reacting, if I'm remembering correctly, they were reacting to the fact that they found out I was talking to other people and making it mean like I was a bad person. And not only did they not like that, but they then got quite abusive. So all of the dating apps, I think that's what we all worry about when we're dating, that something's going to happen that we can't handle. But the dating apps and WhatsApp all have those features where you can block people. So I find that very reassuring when you're in this space, because you don't know people very well, and they have access to your number. So those are the only two things really that I would call horror stories. And And it was a very easy and quick decision that it was to block them. It wasn't, oh, let's talk about this, I'm intrigued what's going on, because completely normalizing that I think about 60 or 70% of the people on the dating apps are talking to more than one person. If you're only talking to one person at a time, which these men may have been, you get very invested with somebody very quickly, too quickly. It's like putting all of your eggs in one basket. So that is one thing that I use as not a rule, but a guide. Just be aware, if you're only talking to one person at a time, you can get this artificial kind of attachment to them before you've even met them and develop that real connection. And so, and then that can cause you to have a reaction like they had. So I do think there are some things, general guidelines that are really useful. But also, yes, absolutely make use of that blocking function when you need to, because you've got to protect kind of your energy and nervous system and mental health as well.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people get a little bit caught up about blocking, like, oh, it's mean or it's unkind, but I think you nailed it, that you got to protect yourself, and once they're blocked, you'll never run into those people. So
yeah, and actually I agree with you with the blocking. I did used to think that blocking, it felt very juvenile and aggressive. It felt punitive. And actually, when it's used in the right way, it's very much setting a boundary. So the same way, if I'm in a relationship and they start calling me names, I'm not going to put up with that. That is a boundary for me, that if we disagree on something, that we're still respectful. And so I will walk away until you can calm down. And that's the same way. So I think if you can use blocking in a way that is intentional and it's protective of your boundaries and not punitive, because when I'd seen it used before, it was very much like somebody texting somebody else and saying, I'm blocking you. And I do think blocking has its time and its place, but not when it's done in that way. Yeah, I definitely think, like at the end of a relationship, I think it's very healthy to have a complete break, physical and, you know, on social media and everything, have a complete break from that person, unless you've got kids with them and there's a very real reason why you can't do that. There are still boundaries that you can put in place so they're not constantly popping up on your news feed and on your phone. And I do think that's helpful, because both people need time to heal and to kind of lick your wounds and reflect. And you can't do that if that person's constantly popping up on your Facebook or Instagram feed or liking your posts. It's not helpful. So I definitely think there is a time and a place for that.
Yeah, totally agree. And you also, I believe, said that you have a course available.
Yeah, it's not a course, it was a workshop. So I did, so that there is a dating quiz that I do that's like a free offer that helps people initially. And then the workshop that I have on my website is something that people can do. It's got like a worksheet that goes with it, and I teach them processes in that to help people get really clear on what they're looking for, and not just a generic list. We go kind of really deep with this and unpick some like unconscious biases that they might have, and uncover certain things so that they come out of that workshop with a really clear idea about what they're looking for and what kind of relationship they want. And I also teach them things in there where we teach them how to use it. So it's not just like a shopping list that you pin on your fridge and go, this is what I'm looking for. We use this list, again, in a very somatic way to get you excited about dating again. Because I think you'll have very different experiences dating. If you're dating and thinking, oh God, there's nobody decent out there, it's not working, versus I'm very excited to meet this person that I've crafted in my imagination and I can't wait to meet them. When I was just saying that, then I was thinking, you know, like when you're pregnant maybe and you've got a baby and I can't wait to meet this person, that kind of energy, versus the, ugh, are they ever going to come along?
Yeah, and it goes back to what you said right at the top, where it like we attract what we are. If you're going into dating going, oh my God, I don't want to be here, I don't want to do this, that's what we're gonna get,
Yeah,
as opposed to I can't wait to meet all these lovely, amazing people.
yeah,
We're gonna
yeah.
get more of those people.
Yeah. And I have complete sympathy for that, because I know I have some friends that I know that have been on the dating apps for years, and they dipping in and out, not on it constantly. And, but they're just not meeting great people. And I have a way of dating, and I wouldn't advocate this for everyone. It's not everybody's cup of tea. But when I go in, it's like I've made a decision. I want a relationship. I've done the necessary work beforehand to help me heal. So I'm doing it from a very good place. And then I'm on the dating apps for a month or two, and I meet somebody usually within that time. And that's not to say that that relationship lasts forever. I was in a relationship prior to the one I'm in now that we were together for a year. And during that time, it became apparent that we weren't compatible in some quite key areas. You can't know that straight away. But during that year, we had a really lovely relationship for the most part. It was just towards the end of that honeymoon period that you realize there's some things here that just are not going to work. And then you can make that decision. But again, I have a tendency to beat myself up that it took me a year to figure that out, because I feel like I should have known better. But
you're just really long to me for that.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just about to say. There are some people that you end up being in a relationship with somebody for 6 years and don't realize that. So I do think the conscious part of this does speed up that realization and decision making process, that you're not, because I don't think any relationship is a waste. I learned a massive amount about myself and about the person I'm wanting to attract in that relationship. And during the course of that relationship, I also did the conscious dating training. And that really helped me realize that there are certain things here that value wise that we're just not compatible. And and I then implemented all of that, and I went back on the dating apps in November 22, and within 4 weeks I met the person I'm with now. And I think that relationship is going to be a happily ever after for me. So I think I do honestly believe, I can't guarantee that you're going to meet somebody within a month, but I can guarantee that with these tools, you're going to enjoy dating a lot more, but also it's almost inevitable, I think. If you're able to keep doing that work, it's inevitable that you're going to meet somebody, because you can't not, when you're clearing all of this stuff out that has been sort of putting up those invisible barriers between you and whoever you want to attract. I don't think you can help but like let all the good stuff in once those barriers are down.
Yeah. So if you had to give everyone who's listening sort of one key takeaway and one thing maybe they could immediately take into their dating life, what would those things be?
Yeah, I think definitely look at the patterns that you have in past relationships. If you've had more than 1 or 2 relationships, you might be able to see some commonalities when you look back. And I think it's massively missed, the gold that you can look for in those past relationships. What did you learn from them? Because in the immediate aftermath, it can be very common to just blame the other person, for all of the things that they did. But there comes a point where you need to start taking a little bit more responsibility for your part in that. And I don't like to assign blame. I think it's about taking responsibility for the parts that you're responsible for. So I do think that can be a massively healthy thing to do. And the other thing on a practical level is go and download my dating quiz. I think that'll give you lots of help, because that's more than one thing. But get very clear on what you're looking for. And the clearer you can be about the type of person that you want and the values that you want to share, I think that alone can have a massive impact.
Yeah. So we'll link that quiz below.
Cool.
And we'll also link your website and your workshop. And
Wonderful.
it's been so lovely to chat with you. It's my weather is brightened up. So unfortunately, I'm sorry, it looks like I'm now sitting in the dark. So I'm going to enjoy the rest of my day. And I hope I got to take advantage of this gorgeous weather.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day as well. And thank you to everybody for watching.
Thank you very much. Take care.